Thanks, Jess. So, as I mentioned, I'll just share some slides for about 25-30 minutes, and then there'll be a chance to ask questions. If you do have any urgent clarifying questions, Jess is going to be keeping an eye on the Q&A and the chat, and she'll interrupt me if necessary throughout. So yes, as I mentioned, we're here today to talk about supporter welcome journeys specifically. So we're narrowing in on supporter journeys that are about new supporters. Just to quickly introduce ourselves, I think we know a lot of you on the call, but I know there's some new faces as well, so I think it's worth just doing a bit of an introduction. I'm Claire, I'm the Director of Mobilisation at Mobilisation, and I'm joined today by my colleague Jess, and if you want to reach out to either of us, our email addresses are here. Mobilisation, so what is Mobilisation? We are the digital mobilisation agency. So we support charities and not-for-profits exclusively to do basically anything to do with supporters. So whether that's recruitment, conversion, retention, engagement, etc. And supporter journeys are something that we're really passionate about and that we do lots and lots of work on, which is why, of course, we're having the session today. And we work with charities of a huge range of sizes. We have organizations that are really big in one country, really big in multiple countries, as well as the teeny tiny organizations that maybe have one paid member of staff. So we have the experience and the expertise of that spectrum. And I know there's different challenges and different opportunities at those different scales, but the best practice that we're going to be sharing today will apply regardless of the size of your organization. What we offer is expertise in 3 key areas. First is strategy. So this includes hands-on project delivery, such as supporter journeys projects, of which, as I mentioned, we do quite a lot of. So this is campaigning strategy, fundraising strategy, communication strategy, recruitment of supporters, engagement supporters, etc. We also have a fantastic design team that are focused on design that is about impact. So it's not just this thing is pretty, but this thing actually gets people to do the thing you want, whether that's give you money, support your campaign, join your event, etc. And finally, we have a campaigning and fundraising platform called Impact Stack. So Impact Stack is a really great choice for a range of supporter journey types because it offers a big selection of action types. So it supports fundraising, it supports campaigning, loads of different campaigning action types, as well as engagement and other types of forms. So this means that you can create really powerful integrated experiences for your supporter. You don't have to send them off to different systems to achieve different things. You can have tailored experiences on page with different asks at different stages. It also integrates really well with a load of different tools, including email tools such as .digital, MailChimp, etc., and CRMs. So I really enjoy using this for sports journey design. A lot of my projects do use Impact Stack, I'd say just over half. And one of the things that I find really enjoyable about it is that because the data flows really well, I can do really powerful testing, I can do really powerful segmentation, and it's really easy and quick to do. So I don't have to spend all my time moving data, worrying about what I can and can't do with segmentation. I have all of that power. If you want to learn more about Impact Stack, let us know. Jess can also pop a link in the chat for you. Our team at Mobilisation, our mobilisation team, we've got over 100 years of experience in the charity and not-for-profit sector. And as I mentioned, this is with a range of different organisations. These are just some of the organisations that our team has worked in-house with, or for rather. And we have trained hundreds of organisations on supporter journeys. I think the last time I counted, we were on 300 plus people that had come to one supporter journeys trainings. We'll have a link for those later as well if you're interested in getting stuck in. That's a day-long training or 2 half days online. Anyway, enough about us. Let's talk about supporter journeys. I'm going to be exploring today the what, the why, and the how of supporter journeys. So what I'm talking about, just to make sure we're on the same page, the why they're important to help you make that case with your colleagues, and the how, just a few tips and tidbits that might be useful for bringing to life your own journeys in your organisation. Today's session is designed as a bit of an introduction to supporter journeys. Obviously, we've only got an hour together today, so we're going to just be focusing on some top level stuff. It's designed for people who are relatively new to trying this out, but if you've been doing it a long time and you're quite experienced in this, there should still be some interesting stuff in there as well. Especially later on towards the end, I'm going to be talking about some testing programs and approaches which might be interesting for you. All right, so let's start off with the what. What do I mean when I'm talking about a supporter journey? Well, the way I would define it is that it's a connected series of communications. So that's what makes it a journey. The communications are connected. They're not a random series of communications that happen one after each other, but they're planned out in a way that considers the whole experience and considers how they relate to one another. For example, ask someone to sign a petition about bees. You maybe send a reminder or a share ask, depending if they take action. You then give them an update on that, and then you do a fundraising ask on the same thing. So this is it's connected. It feels like a narrative is thought through. Although it's not always quite this clean, this is a nice clean example. Throughout today's session, you'll notice a very clear color coding emerging. I'm very dedicated to the color schemes. I find them to be really, really helpful. And here's what they're going to mean. So I categorize communications based upon their primary objective. And they really do need to have a primary objective, because if you're trying to do lots and lots of things with one communication, you're probably going to do them all quite badly. So it's really important to know what your main focus is. So in this color coding, boxes that are red are a fundraising communication, whether that's an email, post, phone, whatever. Pink is campaigning, blue is loyalty, and yellow is engagement. I'm not going to talk about engagement in any depth today because it's very much its own topic. But if you are interested, we have a report and some resources for that on the Marketing website. I'm also going to say email a lot today, but that doesn't mean that journeys have to just be on email. In fact, the best journeys tend to have multi-channel, whether that's post, phone call, social media, etc. But email is kind of the shorthand that I use because it is the most prevalent channel. So when they come together in this color scheme, it can end up looking a bit like this. So this is a simplified version of a welcome journey. And you can see here that there's that balance between the colors. Yeah. So why do they matter? Now, you've come to this session, so you're presumably at least open to the possibility that welcome journeys would be useful for you and for your organization. But as we found in the poll, a lot of people have colleagues who maybe some are on board, some aren't yet. Maybe you need to persuade them, whether they're the budget holders or they're just people you want to cooperate with and build a journey with, so you can create a really nice experience. So I've got some arguments here for why they're so important. And this is based on over a decade of doing testing and learning through journeys, seeing the impact that they have and seeing the value that they create for organizations. All right, so number one, it's easier to keep attention than it is to get that attention. So if you have just recruited new supporters, whether they have just signed a pledge or they've actually given money, etc., you have their attention. They are listening to you. They have just signed up. They've just expressed an interest. You need to make sure you're capitalizing upon that, because attention once lost, it's very hard to get back. Anyone who's tried to do a reactivation campaign, I'm sure will attest to this. The second reason, oh, sorry, my slides, there we go, is that recruiting supporters is really expensive. So those of you who are fortunate enough to have budgets to do this, I'm sure you know exactly how expensive it is to recruit new supporters. And you want to make sure that you're making the most of that investment. Even if you're lucky enough that you have supporters who organically come to you and you're not spending that much time or money, they're just coming to you, which is rare but magical. They still represent high value. They still represent value that you need to make sure that you're making the most of. The other thing with welcome journeys is that they allow you to optimize your recruitment work. So if you create a good welcome journey, which gives people opportunities to get involved early on, you can tell early on which recruitment channels and which recruitment approaches are working for you. So if you're doing, for example, 2 recruitment approaches, one is delivering really cheap new signups. You're getting new supporters for 20p, fantastic. And one is costing maybe £1. On the surface, you might think, okay, well, the 20p is definitely the supporters we want. But by doing welcome journey testing and really good welcome journeys, you can see, are the people we're paying £1 for performing better than the people who are 20p? And if they are, and if they're doing that more than 5 times, which does happen, then they actually represent value for you. So you can very quickly assess the value of new supporters you're bringing in, not just what you've paid for them. So this allows you to then optimize your recruitment activities so you're not wasting money. The next thing is starting a relationship off on the right foot. So you can use a supporter journey, a supporter welcome journey to set expectations. So are you going to be talking at them? Do they not need to engage? Do you want them to be active? Do you want to build a really involved and participative supporter base? And this is your opportunity to set that tone with them. The first few emails you send are going to be absolutely critical. You can also use welcome journeys to learn more about your supporters. So you can ask, why did you sign up? Why did you give money? Why did you support this campaign action? Which you can then put into practice as you develop more content and more communications going forwards. And the thing that I love about welcome journeys is that because they're not a single communication that's fixed in time, It's not, this appeal happens on the 4th of April and it's done forever. They, generally speaking, work really well when they're automated. So the first welcome email will go out within 24 hours of sign up. The next one maybe 3 days after that or 4 days after that, etc. This means you have the opportunity to actually iterate, to learn and improve those journeys going forwards. So you don't have to just launch it, hope for the best, maybe do a little bit of testing, and then go, oh, that didn't work. What can we do about it? Nothing has happened. With a welcome, you can actually go back and make it stronger. That's a really, really powerful opportunity. And finally, they are a great opportunity for piloting new ways of working. Whether that's integrating better with other teams, creating richer journeys, it's gonna be a really fantastic opportunity because you can ring fence the data and because the data doesn't have this historical weight to it. So if you're going to a colleague in an organization that has silos and you're asking them to give permission for you to communicate something to the supporters that they have, that they've been nurturing and owning for years, very hard to get them to let go. Whereas if you have welcome journeys, you have new supporters, people feel less possessive, and it's a good opportunity to start more collaborative working, to create integrated journeys that have lots of different asks and lots of different ways to get involved, which then builds a case for bringing that into other journeys and other ways of working, other parts of your organization. So they're a nice clean slate, so you can try new things without people getting too defensive or upset about it. All right, so let's dive into top tips that we have for you for how to make really good journeys. So you already know now what we're talking about and why it's important. And here's just some tips. It's obviously not going to be every one we could possibly share, but the ones that I think are really most critical for you. All right, so first one is that your journeys should start where your audience is, not where you want to be, but where they are. So you want to make sure that the first email or the first couple of emails that you send them are on the same topic as the sign up action that they did. Obviously, you need to make some practical decisions here. If you have 50 different sign up topics, you're not necessarily going to be creating 50 first emails, but look at the volume, look at where most people are coming through and make sure that those key channels and those key topics are covered and reflected for people who engaged in them. You want to make sure as well that you are referencing the activity that they took when they joined your list. So thank you so much for signing the Bees petition. We're really grateful for your support, blah, blah, blah. It reminds them that they did this thing and it reinforces their decision to support you. Whereas if they take an action, even if it was just a few days ago, they're not necessarily going to remember the detail of that in a few days. And this shows that you understand and respect them and it reminds them that they chose to support you. You can then, of course, be evolving your narrative in later emails. So long as you start where they are, you can then take them on a journey and communicate different parts of your organization to them later on. So let's look at an example of this. So if you were to run meta ads, so Facebook ads, on topic A, and people decide to opt in to receive your emails, your first email should be an update or something related to topic A. You then maybe have a follow-on campaigning action about topic A, fantastic, give that to them. And then you can start broadening out the narrative. Whereas for topic B, you don't have a campaigning ask, but you can create an engagement action. So here we have an update on B, we have another action related to B, and then we broaden out the work, which allows you to then bring those journeys or those branches of the journey together. So you can go broader with your communications, but you should start where they are first. The next one, anyone who has ever talked to me about email has probably already heard this a million times, but one email, one ask. Do not try and squeeze in loads of asks into one email. It is going to cause you to have less effective emails. As I mentioned before, with having one objective, if you're trying to achieve a lot of things, you're probably not achieving anything very well. So this is a thing called the choice paradox. And this basically means the more options and ideas the more options you give someone to choose from, the less likely they are to choose anything. So this actually comes from a study from psychologists at Columbia and Stanford, where, that's the jams, they had a jam experiment in a supermarket where they provided a large range of jams to choose from, and then another day, much fewer jams. And they found that the more jams offered, the more likely people were to buy none of them, because there's just too many things to choose from, so people just opt out from choosing. So when you provide someone with one thing, please do this thing, there's no choice, there's no friction created through having to choose, they do the thing, or they don't want to do the thing. This is something you should definitely test yourself. I found time and time again when testing this in many organizations that if you give someone an email with one ask, they're much more likely to take it than if you give an email with 2, 3, or more asks, they're more likely to do nothing from that. So newsletters generally are very bad at converting people to action. And if you're thinking, oh, my email content isn't worth its own email, probably shouldn't be sending it anyway. So things should be strong enough to stand on their own as one email, or you shouldn't be sending them. All right, next point is you are building relationships. You are not managing a resource. It's very easy to think about supporters in terms of numbers. We report on, oh, I have 5,000 supporters, 20,000, 200,000, 2 million supporters. And that feels like the thing that matters. And it starts feeling like money in the bank. But they're not money in the bank. They are human beings who you need to build a relationship with, maintain that relationship with. So you need to remember that it's not all about you. You need to make sure that you're meeting their needs as much as you're meeting your own. So this is why I find these categories really helpful with the emails or communications of any kind. So you can see here, the red and the pink, the fundraising campaigning, are all about what you want. We need your money to do this. We need your support to win this campaign. Whereas the loyalty and engagement communications, loyalty being passive, engagement being active. So for example, take a quiz versus read this blog. They are about your supporters' needs to learn more, to feel connected, to build empathy, to feel connection, whatever it may be. That supporter need can be met by those two email types. So when you think about these in connection, remember this diagram from earlier, this welcome journey, simplified version of it anyway. You can see here there's a balance. It's not all red. It's not all red and pink. It's got lots of blue, lots of yellow in there. We're meeting supporters' needs so that they can meet our needs. It has to be reciprocal for it to work well. The next tip is to make sure you're being active. So we have found that the first few communications that you send in your journey determine the activity levels going forwards. So you want to make sure that the first few emails or first few communications you're sending are active. They should set the expectation of the role of the supporter as being participating in change, whether that's giving money, whether that's sharing their ideas, whether that's supporting a campaign, etc. If you just send them things for them to read that are really passive, you're telling them your role here is just to listen, and therefore it doesn't really make much of an impact. You can open the email, not open the email, up to you. And they listen to that and they understand that and internalize it. So you want to make sure you're starting off active so that you stay active, so that in the future they will take your campaigning actions, they will give you money, they will join your events, share their ideas, etc. And with this, you want to remember that you want to remember that with active stuff, if you don't have campaigning, you don't have many non-financial active things to do, think about engagement actions. And again, if you want to learn more about engagement actions, we've got some resources, some old webinars and stuff we can share with you as well. All right, the next tip is to be integrated with your welcome journeys. So you'll find, I promise you, I've yet to find an exception for this. I'm sure there is one, but I've yet to find it. Your campaigners are typically going to be the most likely group to give you money. And the people who give you money are going to be the most likely group to campaign with you. So a welcome journey is the perfect time to introduce supporters to a range of different ways to get involved. So you don't have all that historical debt of possible historical silos. You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot by creating them again and reflecting them in the journeys again. You want to create a rich, integrated experience so that going forward, they support you in a range of ways. And I want to just share some numbers on this, which I think are quite compelling. So in terms of integration, for increasing conversion rates, we had one organization found that in their welcome journey, people who engage with campaigning or engagement actions were 4 to 5 times more likely to donate. So getting people active, getting people engaged in other areas of work makes them more likely to become financial givers and more likely to stay financial givers. This is a different organization, and they found that regular givers who also got involved in their campaigns work had a 8% higher retention rate at 2 years. So 8% more of them were still giving their regular gift, hadn't cancelled it at the 2-year point. This is a great way to keep people active in a non-financial way as well. And of course, you can win more campaigns. So the more people supporting your campaign, the more people behind your campaign, the more likely you are that your voice is going to be heard and you're going to affect change. All right, my final tip here is test to improve. So you need to remember that what's going to work for your organization and for your audience and for this specific journey will not be identical to other audiences, other journeys, other organizations. So you need to make sure that you're gathering data and you're running tests that allow you to see what works for you. And I really love welcome journeys for this. I think they're a fantastic opportunity because you not only have that, to an extent, blank slate, but because, as I say, they're often automated on a schedule that's based on supporter. So they'll start whenever the supporter joins you rather than being a specific date. You can be improving them all the time. You can review your journeys every 3 months, 6 months, depending on your volumes, and say, oh, email 3 is not working very well. Let's see how we can create something that's richer here. Let's test the current approach against this one, and let's see how we can improve that. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about testing, because I think this does definitely deserve its own little section. So with testing, so when I'm talking about testing, I'm talking about optimization testing. So not just, does this link work? Have I avoided any typos? But rather, I've tested two versions of this, and I've seen which works better, and then use that version. If you want to learn more about A/B testing, we have some free resources on our website. Do feel free to go and download those if you're interested. I won't go too much into the methodologies here, simply for time. But anyway, testing 2 versions or more than 2 versions. You roll them out with your supporters, you see how it works, and then you use the most successful one. So you want to make sure that you're embedding testing with individual emails and landing pages. There's loads of different testing you can be doing here. Subject lines, the tone of your messaging, the framing of your messaging. What pictures are you using? Are you using pictures of people, pictures of an environment, pictures of nature, whatever it may be? You can try different framing, different color schemes, different page layouts. Loads of stuff you can do to get people to open, click, and convert on what you're asking them to do, whether that's giving you money, supporting your campaign, etc. This is a much more common form of testing. This, I think, has been relatively embedded in the sector for a while now. That doesn't mean that it's a problem if you're not doing it. Do give it a go. Don't feel any shame on that. Not everyone is doing it yet, but do embed some of this training, this testing in your work. And do have a look at our report, which gives you a bit more information to do that. But I wanted to talk today a little bit more about testing entire journeys, because this is something that I don't think anyone's, well, maybe a handful of people are doing this and doing this well at the moment. And it offers so much potential that I think is just going completely untapped at the moment. So because the journey is ongoing, because they're continuing, you can be running tests that span the whole length of the journey. So instead of just, does this subject line get people to open and click on this email more, you can explore questions like, how often should I be sending emails? You could be exploring the order of the emails and asks. For example, if I send an engagement action for a fundraising email, are they more likely to give? Or how soon in the journey should we ask for money? Or do informational emails before campaigning asks make people more likely to take that campaigning action? You can actually look at sequencing and approach and timing and density and things like this. You can also play around with things like email templates, who's authoring your email. You can play around with multi-channel experiences. For example, if I call someone and I give them an update on the topic that they've got involved in before I send them a fundraising email, are they more likely to donate on that fundraising email? Or if I send someone something in the post before they get a campaigning action, which tells them a little bit more about the topic, are they more likely to take the campaigning action? So you can play around with different channels, as well as thinking about the broader experience and the whole journey itself. I want to bring this to life quickly with just an example of some journey-wide testing that we've got live at the moment that I'm really looking forward to the results for. So this is an example. If you want to read more, there's a case study on our website. This is Shelter. So we created 3 journeys for the Shelter for welcoming their regular givers, their cash givers, and their lottery players. And each of these journeys has different journey-wide hypotheses that we're testing. So in this first example, this is the lottery welcome journey. And for the lottery welcome journey, we realized they have really good data on their audiences, and they realized that the profile of their lottery players is quite different to the profile of their other donors. The most striking thing was that they had less of a personal connection with Shelter and with the topic of homelessness, and that they were a little bit more self-motivated. So it was about the prospect for winning money. So that's self-success rather than cause-driven. So we launched 3 versions of this welcome journey. The green emails, this is different color coding to before, just to prove this test, to show this test, but the green here shows emails that are about the benefit to the player. What would you spend the money on? Here's some winner stories, that kind of stuff. The red is about cause. Your playing of this lottery has helped people out of homelessness, has helped support people to keep their homes, that kind of thing. So we had one that had a lot of player benefit focus. We had a balanced one, and we've got one that's really mostly course focused. And we're going to see what the retention rates are for supporters at the end of these. So people are randomly assigned one of these 3 journeys. They finish the whole journey, and then we're going to look at their how many of them are still playing the lottery at the end of the 6-month period. The next example is for the regular giving welcome. For this, we were looking to see if campaigning helps donor retention rates. This test was actually launched before we got the data for the other client that I mentioned earlier. But as I said, different organizations will have different results, so it's absolutely worth running anyway. And we've got the data coming through, which we hope to have very soon. So as you can see here, the journeys are identical in all ways, except version 2 also has some campaigning emails in it. And we're going to see if that makes a difference, if people are more likely to keep their regular gift active, if they are given a chance to get involved in Shelter's campaigns work. And finally, for one-time donors, we're exploring the speed at which the emails are sent. So this is an identical journey, but one that's a bit more squashed. So the delays between emails for version 2 are shorter than in version 1. And we're going to see if we go more quickly, are we seeing a drop-off? Are we seeing like unsubs? Are people still converting? If quicker is just as effective, great, because it means we can get people into the main comms more quickly. If it's causing problems, then we won't use it. As I say, we're hoping to get data through this imminently. I know for those of you who I spoke to late last year, we were hoping that then, but I promise it's coming. With the consent of the client, I'd be very happy to share that with you. If you're not yet on the Modding In email list, do definitely recommend signing up, because we'll be sharing things like the results from these tests, as well as more events like this, etc. All right, just some signposts to some more resources if you're interested in downloading some extra things, learning a bit more about supporter journeys. The first is our free report. So this is just some tips, top-line tips on supporter journeys and how to create good ones. I've also included some tips in there about how to run automations if you're in MailChimp. So just some technical stuff on how to do it with MailChimp. It's actually very easy. The other thing is, if you want to dive in a bit more detail in supporter journeys, we do public trainings twice a year. So this is a 1-day training, or we're going to do the next one is going to be online. So it's going to be 2 mornings, where we go into a bit more about objectives, audience segmentation, all of the kind of important details of designing a supporter journey. We'll spend some time on that. So if you are looking to be doing a lot of this work yourself coming up, and you're feeling a little bit unsure, I definitely recommend coming to that training. It usually sells out, so do grab a slot when you can. The next one, as I say, is next month. There's also, we're going to be doing another training on supporter recruitment around the same time if you're interested in that. And do stay in the loop. I think a lot of you on the call today are on the Modding In email list, but if you're not yet, you can sign up on this link, which Jess is also going to pop in the chat for us later. You'll get invites to webinars like this, free resources, case studies, all that kind of stuff. And finally, if you want to work together, do reach out. As I say, this is a core part of our work. We do loads of supporter journey projects, from just a small little bit of consultancy all the way through to the large projects like the Shelter one I talked about, which was 3 journeys that we built over a decent period of time. We can do all kinds of different scales and all kinds of different support. We also, if you are a small charity, we have some special small charities packages available. So do reach out. We can also support with, as I mentioned before, anything around supporter recruitment, engagement, creative work, conversion, retention, technology, all that kind of jazz. Anyway, do reach out if you have anything you'd like to discuss, you want to have a conversation with us. Otherwise, I will hand over to Jess to kick off a Q&A with us.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you to everybody who's been posting their questions. I've been whizzing through them, and we're not going to get through all of them, but I'll hopefully pick out ones that will be useful, and obviously there'll be a chance to reach out to us at the end if you've got further questions or we don't get to yours. So I'm going to kick off with a couple of hopefully quick ones. So first question, where do you go once a supporter reaches the end of their welcome journey? Or how do they leave a welcome journey?
When do they leave? So first off, on the duration of the welcome journey, it depends on so many factors, like what you're trying to achieve with that audience is going to be the key one. So if you're trying to take a really cold audience to become something like a regular giver, it's going to take a while. But if you're taking someone who's already quite engaged to take maybe like a campaigning action, you do that more quickly. So generally I see them between 2 and 6 months as a welcome journey. After the welcome's over, that's when your ongoing communications, your evergreen, if you will, communications come into play. So that's when you're thinking about, what are our scheduled emails? What are the things we're sending out on the 10th of April? And you can think about which supporters get which stuff and what opportunities you're building into that. That's your ongoing supporter journeys. And that's just as important, absolutely just as important, but that's going to be your transition. And the other thing to note is that when you finish welcome, you want to know what that evergreen experience is going to be so you can transition people to it. If, for example, your welcome journey is going to be sending emails once every 6 days, and then when they move into the evergreen, it's going to be less frequent or maybe different style, kind of see if you can make that a bit of a smooth transition, maybe slowly change the frequency or slowly adapt the style so that it doesn't feel too much of a jump for them.
Great, thank you, Claire. So we also had a question on how many welcome journeys, which I guess you've touched, how many welcome emails in a journey, which I guess you've touched on, but I wonder if you want to pick up on that point about frequency as well.
How many emails? It really depends on your capacity and the volume of people coming into these journeys. So if you're a small organization and you're one person that's doing all of the communications with your supporters, it doesn't make sense for you to tie yourselves in knots trying to create these elaborate, really long experiences just for the welcome and then do this, because you're going to just burn yourself out. So I think it's really important to have prioritization in terms of how in-depth does the welcome journey need to be for different groups and all that kind of stuff. So for example, people coming in as new regular givers have a much higher value. They're probably worth a little bit more attention. But people coming through as non-financial, maybe you can just do 3 to 5 emails at a minimum. It depends, because some of the if you're an organization that's bringing in thousands of new supporters a month or a week even, sorry, it's worth investing in a rich, detailed journey. So that might have 30 emails in it if you're having like a high volume of people coming through. You need to just make sure that you're balancing the needs of your capacity versus the needs of supporters and the volume of supporters. So you're not investing 8 weeks of work on a welcome journey that's going to see 50 people come in a month. And I think that's really the key, is balance, and prioritization is going to be important for you. If you only manage to send 2 emails in your welcome, that's fine. That's great. That's 2 emails more than it would have been otherwise. So it's just finding that balance for you. Sorry, Jess, the other was around frequency.
It was about frequency, yes.
So frequency is something I've tested a bunch. And as you can see, we've got a live test on now. I've yet to find a perfect magical number. The most important thing is that it feels like a good pacing, as in you're not bombarding them with 4 emails a day, but you're also not leaving them alone for 2 weeks. So it depends on the flow of the conversation that is the journey. If you're asking them to do something, you maybe feedback on that 2 or 3 days later. But if you've asked them to give money and they haven't done it, maybe give them a breathing room of maybe a week or 10 days or something. Just think about the conversation. Some bits will be quicker than others. Some bits will be slower than others. Try to send minimum an email a fortnight if you're a small organization. If you're a large organization, it's okay to send one every 2 or 3 days if you've got lots to say. It's more about the quality of what you're saying. I see a lot of organizations saying, it's a Tuesday, we send emails on Tuesday, what are we going to talk about? And then the content's really weak. But if you've got something really interesting, really compelling to say and really engaging action for somebody to take, send that email. If you don't send that email.
Thanks, Claire. Okay, I've got a couple of questions here which I'm going to pose together because they're both from organisations really thinking about how do you do this at a really small scale? So what can you do and how can you approach this? So one asking about testing. How would you approach testing when your audience is really small and you only have a handful of signups per month?
Yep.
Brackets, obviously something we also want to address. So, and then the second question is I work with a grassroots group who don't have much money, and what tools would you recommend for them to set up a supporter journey for their new campaign? They're currently using the free version of MailChimp for their newsletter, and the sign up is a Google Doc on their website, so it's not currently automated.
Okay. All right, so let's look at testing at low volumes. Yeah, if you've got 5 people taking your welcome journey, you're not going to get useful data. you're not going to achieve what's called statistical significance. So you're not going to have the volumes at which you can definitively say this version works better and I can scale it and I know it'll keep working better. So you really just need to use kind of qualitative testing there, I'd say. So keep an eye on open rates, click rates, keep an eye on how people are engaging with things. You can also use tools such as Inspectlet and things like this, and I think Hotjar have one as well, where you can look at how people are interacting with your website and you can see where people are getting stuck. So you can do that kind of low volume qualitative stuff, but you're probably not going to get any useful results on quantitative testing if your volumes are in the dozens of people. So maybe save your time there and maybe just keep an eye on things, see how you can just bring the numbers up in a way that makes sense. But also, if you've got a couple dozen people coming through, maybe your attention shouldn't be spent on the welcome journey. Maybe it should be spent on the recruitment so that you can then create good welcome journeys for them. Grassroots group and technology. So I'll confess that this is something that I don't have the regular issue with, because obviously people come to us and hire us and therefore they have the technology. But I would say if you're using the free version of MailChimp, that's actually a really great shout, because MailChimp is really usable, really powerful. And even though the free version is a bit more limited, it's still one of your best bets out there. It's actually been created really for this use case. So I think that's a good choice. I also don't disagree with the Google Forms, because again, Google Forms, they're free, they're okay. If you're okay with the privacy of them, as in where the data's going, how it's moving, etc., I think that's not a bad option. In terms of data flowing, there may well be an integration that exists between those two platforms. I haven't looked into it, but those are the sort of platforms that have really great APIs and that connect really nicely. So you might find that there is something if you give it a Google. If there isn't, you might find a third-party solution like Zapier will allow you to have that data move automatically. So you don't have to do it yourself. That's Zapier. And those systems should easily connect through Zapier.
Thanks, Claire. I've got a couple more now about parallel journeys, or about how your welcome journey integrates with the rest of your emails. So one directly picking up on the shelter case study. So as the shelter case study, as the shelter journey is so long, are these people also getting the regular shelter emails at that time, or are they excluded from normal emails while they're in the welcome journey? And then a second question, this is from Bennett, Breast Cancer Now. Our welcome journeys run alongside our product and stewardship journeys. For areas like events or mass participation, is it better to send those supporters the welcome journey after they've taken their action, i.e. they've run their marathon or had their coffee morning, so it's more of a transition journey, or is it okay to send it at the same time like we're doing at the moment?
All right, so let's start with the shelter. Yes, people in the welcome journey are excluded from other communications. Otherwise, it's not a journey. Otherwise, it's multiple people talking at them at once. It stops being a conversation. However, there is an important caveat here, which I think is really important to consider for all organizations, which is there are some things that are just too important to wait. For example, if Shelter is a campaigning organisation, so they have really big, important campaigning moments. If something gets tabled or discussed in Parliament that they need their supporters involved in, and they need everyone involved in, and people in the welcome have already taken the petition on this, we know that they're interested, that's an exception. That's a journey interrupting moment, for which you wouldn't have them running simultaneously, but you would pause the journey, you would send them this mini journey for the emergency communications, and then you would resume the journey, having transitioned back into it. This also applies if you're an organization that does fundraising emergencies, so whether that's natural disaster or whatever it may be, that's worth pausing a welcome for. But in general, you would keep the people in the welcome protected, ring-fenced from all other communications, so that it is still a journey for them. As for things like events and products, I think those are welcome journeys. So if I sign up and the first thing I do is I sign up for a marathon with you, well, then my journey is the marathon journey. And that marathon journey should have communications in it that welcome people who are brand new. So it's not just everyone gets the same stuff, but if you're brand new to the organization and you've signed up for this marathon, you get an email that says, thank you so much for signing up to join the marathon. I wanted to tell you a little bit about our organization and how you're going to make such a big difference, which is going to be different from the people who are maybe already donors with you, maybe you've been with you for a long time, and then sign up for the marathon. You'll say, thanks so much for signing up for the marathon. I know you already do so much, blah, blah, blah. So I think that is the welcome journey. I don't think it's an either or for them. And as you say, you can have, after the event has happened, you can have a few more emails that say, you've run this event, that's fantastic, you made such a big difference. Let me tell you about the rest of our work and some other ways you can get involved. And then you maybe have 2 or 3 emails that broaden that narrative out, which allow them to move into the general comms pod.
So next, wanted to, there are a couple of questions relevant to this, but to pick up on the point about engagement. So what ideas would you suggest to include in active emails to get the community to engage without it being a money ask?
Good question. There are too many for me to say them now, but we actually have a free online tool, which is an engagement idea generator. You literally click a button and it spins and gives you a new idea. So that's got hundreds of ideas in that for different engagement actions. You can use that to spark your creative sessions yourself. You maybe see something in there that you can go, oh, that's really interesting. We could adapt to this content we already have, or just keep spinning the wheel until something catches you for that. And I also do recommend the hang on, I'm attached to my headphones. This report, which is on our website, which is all about engagement actions, and that has some ideas in it as well as a link to the generator that I mentioned. But there's so many things. And I think people default too often to the same 1 or 2 ideas. So I don't want to give you those ideas because then you'll default to them as well. So get a bit creative. Think about your audience. Think about the objectives there. Engagement actions can meet so many different objectives. There's no objective that's just engagement. It's, are they learning about the topic? Are they learning about you? Are they sharing a little bit about themselves? Are they building empathy with the people that you work with? Are they connecting with other people in the community? There's so many objectives that fall underneath the engagement umbrella that it's important to know which one that you're working towards as well. So yeah, do have a look at that report and spin the it's not actually a wheel, but spin the wheel on the engagement generator.
It's fun. It's fun. I've just popped a link in the chat. So if we can hopefully retain everybody's attention and they're not kind of distracted generating engagement ideas. Save that for later, everyone. Okay, next question. How important is it to create segmented welcome journeys? So I guess that's a question about segmenting both within journeys and also how many different journeys do you
Yep.
think an organization should be running?
Sure. So segmentation is at 3 levels, or at least that's how I like to think about it. So you can segment entire journeys, you can segment emails within journeys, and you can segment within emails. So segmentation at the level of entirely different journeys, it has to be something really different about the audience profile and the objectives, like the audience needs. So the examples we gave there, regular givers, we're looking to retain them. Cash, we're looking to convert them again. So there's very different audience profiles and very different audience objectives. Those need different journeys. But if you're, for example, doing a journey that has a campaign ask in it, and some people will have taken it, some wouldn't, you've got a branch in your journey. So you get an ask of people who haven't taken it, you maybe get a follow-up action or feedback for people who have, and then that can come back together. And then finally, segmentation within the emails is things like changing a sentence of copy. The first email is a great example. Thanks so much for joining our organization when you signed the Bees petition. Thanks so much for joining our organization when you signed the Trees petition. Thanks so much. Yeah. So I think you want to think about those 3 different levels. And you also want to, again, balance your work with the impact it's going to have. If there are only a handful of people that are going to be in a specific segment, you want to make that really easy to do. So that's more likely the single sentence change. If there's going to be a high volume of people, it's maybe worth a higher level of segmentation. So you want to consider those 3 segmentation approaches, and you want to consider scale. So you can then decide what's worth doing. If there's not very many people and they're not that high value, they're not like your regular givers or major donors, it's probably not worth their own segment. If it's high volume, it's probably worth it.
Okay, I'm just going to pose one last question for Claire before we move to a close. Apologies to anybody whose questions we haven't got to. There's lots here. We looked at one for particularly about the needs of very small scale organisations, but there's one here about kind of how this fits in larger organisations, which I thought was really interesting. So in larger organisations, who have you found is typically responsible for the welcome journey? Especially where there are various teams with different priorities, but the welcome journey has never been fully considered. I feel like there's a whole story behind this question. But
for
obviously,
sure.
you know, it's something we've encountered a lot. Where does this fit and who is
Mhm.
responsible and how does it get coordinated in different organizations?
There's so many different approaches to this. Different organizations have radically different ways of doing it, and it depends to a great extent on how integrated they are. So organizations that aren't very well integrated across teams yet, they tend to have like, if people come in on a campaigns action, then that's the campaign's welcome journey. If people come in as a donor, that's the donor welcome journey. Or the fundraising team might have big budgets to do a large scale recruitment push for non-financials, just like hand raisers, sign-ups, etc. And then they're in charge because they've provided the money for it. That's the more common approach, to be honest, is different teams taking responsibility for that. And it is very important that there is a team or a person who is responsible and is really committed and passionate about this because they need to be, every project needs to be driven well. But I think when it works best is when there's cross-organizational project groups. So this is when you'll maybe have someone from the fundraising team, someone from the campaign team, someone from comms, a range of different people from different teams, depending on, how your organization is structured, and they collaborate together to create an integrated welcome journey. So it might be that the fundraising team puts up the money to promote the campaign action, which brings people in at a really good price. And then the campaigns support to make sure that the content in that journey is engaging to those people who've come in on a campaigns topic, whereas fundraising gets opportunities to raise money with them, and it becomes more of a collaborative moment. I've also seen this trend in the last few years, which is really encouraging, where organizations are hiring supporter journeys managers, supporter journeys teams, people whose responsibility is supporter journeys. That's getting more and more common at large organizations where they're seeing the impact of these integrated cross-team communications, and that central coordinating role can be really valuable for that as well. So if you don't have anything that's centrally coordinating like that, and you are in a large organization that has resources, it's definitely something to consider. I definitely recommend checking out as well the versus arthritis webinar that we did just over a year ago. They went through a really transformational process whereby they ended up having that team at the end of it after doing lots of journeys work as kind of stepping stones to getting there. So that hopefully will be very interesting as well.
Thanks, Claire. Good shout. I'll make sure that we add a link to that webinar recording to the follow-up
Cool.
materials that we
Thanks, Jess.
send up after the event. So before we wrap up, we just wanted to launch another quick poll. We've been really thrilled at the response to this, and we can see it's a really popular topic. And so we'd love some input from you about what other content we could offer in the coming months to support your work. So I'm going to pop up our closing poll. Hopefully you should be able to see that now. Just asking you, what did you find useful today? What was most helpful? Anything you think you might apply? And which of these ideas for possible free future event topics might interest you? Please tick all that you think would be useful for you. And if you think of something else that we haven't suggested, please pop the idea in the chat. We would love to hear what you would like to see more of. And obviously, if you'd like to have a chat with one of us, just pop your email address in the third question. So I'll give you a few moments to fill in that. No surprises to see overcoming technology and data challenges. Big issue for lots of people. Okay, so thank you to Claire and to everyone for coming. We'll share the video recording of today's session later today or tomorrow morning, so look out for that. And we'll include links to the different resources that we've highlighted in the chat as we've gone through. We'll use this feedback you're giving us to inform future content. So if you're not yet opted in to receive our emails about more onion events, resources, case studies, etc., do sign up using the link in the chat or that will be in the follow-up email. So I think Claire's going to pop a link in the chat now. And obviously feel free to contact us directly after the call. So you've got our More Onion email address there. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions, and apologies to those we didn't get to. Hopefully there'll be another chance for us to connect with you. And thank you, of course, to Claire for sharing her expertise today. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you, Jess, for organising and helping to run the session. Much appreciated.
Okay, I'm just going to close the poll now. Oh, a few. Yeah, okay. End the poll. And we'll close. Thanks, everyone, for coming.